Hello, everybody, and welcome to 38 Weeks Ago, your weekly podcast about fantasy football. I am your host, Nash, and let's get into the game week that was, Game Week 23. How was Game Week 23 for you? I got 57 points, which is just below the average of 59, so I didn't do too great. So we all enter this game week very hopeful. Liverpool have a tasty fixture against Ipswich. And they do win 4-1. But Salah couldn't be less involved if he tried. I mean, he got a goal, but if you watch that game, that was the best he could do. They win 4-1 and nothing. So you're banking on a Liverpool clean sheet. And then out of nowhere, Greaves squads a header. Clean sheet gone. Newcastle are playing Southampton. Isak does what you expect him to do. And you think, if you're like me, of Lewis Hall, you're like, this is a clean sheet for sure. They score first. All hopes dashed. And then the biggest disappointment of them all is what I was considering the marquee match. Bournemouth 5, Nottingham Forest 0. Nottingham Forest didn't even keep a clean sheet, didn't even pretend that they were going to. It was a disaster. But there was joy for those of us who brought in Kluivert. I was expecting a return out of the Brighton game, so if you had the Joao Pedros of the world, I'm sorry. Everton keep a clean sheet right after we expect them not to be able to do that. And to make it even worse, if you were somebody who brought in Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Ndiaye takes a penalty. Arsenal get a red card, and so they barely scrape by Wolves. But in the meantime, Havertz is doing his best Havertz Chelsea impression. He could have won that game clean and easy. And if you had him, that must have been painful to watch. For whatever reason, Brentford decide to win their first away game of the season. I'm sure many of you guys were just cussing him out when he missed the penalty. And then, a few minutes later, they retake the penalty, he scores. Football, ups and downs. It comes at you fast. And then Spurs do the most Spurs thing ever. I keep on telling you guys, on their day, they can beat anyone. And on their day, they can be beaten by anyone. I didn't see Spurs being beaten by Leicester, but it was a possibility, but I just also didn't see it. Man United won. Yeah, that's all. They won. So, looking at the biggest game of the week, the marquee game of the week was Man City versus Chelsea. Man City 3, Chelsea 1. Chelsea started brightly, got the early goal, and it looked like they had figured out what they wanted to do. But Man City are not the Man City for last year. They are stronger mentally. They seem more organized. They seem more confident. Vardiol equalized, and Vardiol could have scored maybe 2 or 3 goals. That man, he just seems to pop up everywhere. And then Haaland scored, and then Haaland had a rare assist for Foden, and the game ends 3-1. Ederson had an assist, Haaland had an assist, and Matheus Nunes had an assist. Nicholas Jackson had the assist for Madueke. Palmer is a bit cold of late. Anyway, Haaland got the 3 bonus points. Madueke and Ederson got 2. Like I had said even before the game week, I honestly didn't expect Chelsea to beat Manchester City. There's just something off about them, and this one just shows the gap. The biggest surprise of the weekend is Bournemouth 5, Nottingham Forest 0. This game is such an anomaly. It makes you wonder if Nottingham Forest will recover from this loss. 5-0. And not only that, the nature of this loss is that Nottingham Forest looked so slow. They looked so underprepared. They looked like they didn't even know they were going to play Bournemouth. They were completely beaten. They were the third best team. They were just horrible. Bournemouth, on the other hand, were just so fast, so quick, so prepared for this game. They just knew what they wanted to do, and they did it the whole game. Kluivert was impressive. Look at them, another hat-trick. Ouattara, I'm telling you, and I've said this for a long time, everyone on that Bournemouth team can be a danger. Anyone. It's just whoever's day it is to shine, they shine. Ouattara had a hat-trick and had a goal disallowed. I think even Kluivert had a goal disallowed, and that one was a good goal if you watch the highlights. Ouattara had a hat-trick, Kluivert had a goal, Semenyo had a goal. Adams had 2 assists, Tavernier had 2 assists, and Kluivert had 1 assist. Ouattara, of course, got the 3 bonus points Kluivert had 2 bonus points. Semenyo had 1. Now, I told you guys before the game that this was my marquee game of the week. And in a way, it lived up to the billing. Bournemouth have been just super impressive, and it just continues. It seems like every challenge they face, they just overcome it. It seems like they can absolutely beat anybody. Nottingham Forest, on the other hand, I wouldn't say this was a challenge. This wasn't the kind of game where you mark their season by, but it has ended up being that, where you're like, oh, these guys have these many problems. Okay. I honestly think this is a turning point in their season, but maybe I'm overreacting. Let's see how they recover on the weekend. The most disappointing game of the weekend is obviously Spurs 1, Leicester 2. Spurs are supposed to be the better team. Leicester are battling relegation. And somehow, just somehow, Spurs lost this game. If you watch the game, they had chances. They created. They were creative. But they just couldn't get anything over the line. And Leicester really just took their chances. Sometimes football is as simple as that. Did you create chances? Did you take them? Did you take the chances that fell on your feet? Yes or no? Vardy took his chance. Elkanous scored a beautiful goal. I know Spurs have so many players missing through injury. It's about 10 or 11. It kind of reminds me of Sheffield last season. And because of that, it's hard to really judge Postecoglou. But I honestly don't think he'll be able to survive because his squad is just too weak, and also it is just simply not his fault. If people aren't available, you use the players who are available to you, and if they're not good enough, they aren't. But he should be good enough to compete against the number 17 team, right? I swear, if they weren't in Europe and in all these other cup competitions, I think he would have already been fired by now. Richarlison scored a beautiful header off Pedro Porro, and Pedro Porro just seems to be the most consistent performer in this team. He just seems to always perform with an assist, or he just seems to be getting in this in one way or another. Vardy and Elkanous scored off assists from Bobby De Cordova-Reid. Vardy had the 3 bonus points, Elkanous had 2, and Pedro Porro had 2. There were 4 clean sheets this weekend. Looking at the best performers of the week, starting with the goalies, Raya was the best performer with 9 points, followed by Edison, who had 8 points, Kepa had 7, Onana had 6, and Pickford had 5. When it comes to defenders, Martinez had 15, Emerson had 10, Saliba had 9, Braithwaite had 8, and Vardiol had 8, along with Maguire. I honestly thought Saliba would be out longer, but here we are. When it comes to midfield, Ouattara was the best performer with 21 points, followed by Kluivert, who had 13, followed by Szoboszlai, who was tied with 13, Shada had 11, and Ramsey had 10. When it comes to forwards, Gakpo had 16, Isak had 13, Haaland had 12, Vardy had 9, and Yai had 8. Midfield was king, but not by far this time. And of course, Ouattara was the best performer of the game week. Looking at some stats, over the last 3 games, Mo Salah has received 0 big chances from open play. And honestly, if you watch the game, this is true. And just mirrors what I was saying earlier. It just felt like there was nothing coming for him. Honestly, that really scares me because I wanted to triple captain him. But now I'm like, ooh, I don't know. Ollie Watkins become the second Aston Villa player to be directly involved in 100+ Premier League goals, 61 goals and 39 assists after Gabi Agbonlahor. But Watkins reached it in 108 fewer appearances. Agbonlahor took 277 games to do it, whilst Watkins took 169. Tottenham losing to Leicester was the first time since 1912 that they'd lost against a team on a 7-game losing streak in the league. Tottenham haven't won a game in 7 attempts. Their longest winless run since 2008. Damsgaard has now gotten 8 assists. That is the most any Brentford player has ever gotten in the Premier League. Whilst Christian Eriksen is the only Danish person who has made more assists in the Premier League in a single season. This is the first time Spurs have conceded 2 goals in the opening 5 minutes of a second half in the Premier League since 1997. Ouattara is the first Burkinabe to score a Premier League hat-trick. With his assist to Haaland, Ederson has now gotten 5 assists in the Premier League, the joint most by a goalkeeper in the competition's history, alongside Paul Robinson. I didn't even know that Paul Robinson had that in him. Miles Lewis-Skelly is the 3rd youngest player to receive a red card in the Premier League. Only Rooney and Michael Owen were younger when they received theirs. Skelly is 18 years old and 121 days. Rooney got his at 17 years old and 63 days, whilst Mr. Michael Owen got his at 18 years and 117 days. Isak has scored 48 goals in the Premier League. This makes him the joint most Swedish top scorer in the Premier League. He's tied with Freddie Ljungberg. On the weekends, David Moyes took over his 700th game in the Premier League. Only Arsene Wenger and Sir Alex Ferguson have done more. Ferguson with 810 and Wenger with 828. Ola Aina has 3 goal line clearances, and these clearances have netted Forest 5 points. The most selected player this week was Mo Salah. The most captained was Mo Salah. Most vice-captained was Isak. The top transfers for this coming game week are Gakpo with 400,000 bringing him in, Kluivert 374,000 bringing him in, Diaye 130,000 bringing him in, Alexander-Arnold 100,000 bringing him in, and Pickford 95,000 bringing him in. It's no coincidence that Everton and Liverpool have a double game week, and their players are the most brought in players. Most transferred people out are Wood 155,000, Raul 103,000, Joao Pedro 101,000, Gordon 79,000, and Palmer 77,000. Every week you're seeing Palmer going. It just reminds me of how Haaland was being removed out of people's teams. The weekly average was 59, so if you did 59 or better, well done. If you didn't, like me, there's always next week. Do better. The highest points this week was 129, and this person used their bench boost. But more than that, they lost 32 points. But I guess if you lose 32 and you gain nearly 100, maybe it's not too bad. Their captain was Haaland, gave him 24 points. Isak gave him 13 points. Kluivert, 13 points. Ouattara, 21 points. Salah, 8. Potter, 1. Vardiol, 8. Van Dijk, 2. Bednarik, 7. Konate, 5. Pickford, 5. And then on the bench, he had Raya, 9. Castagna, 2. Elanga, 2. Vardy, 9. So, all in all, it's not a bad team. 129 points. Ghazi Omar is our global weekly leader. Closer to home, our weekly leader is Pablo Sanjeev, who got 88 points. In his team, he had Flecken as goalkeeper, and Flecken keeps being denied a clean sheet very late. Anyway, Flecken gave him 3, Vardiol gave him 8, Lisandro Martinez gave him 15, Pedro Porro gave him 6, Gabriel gave him 7, Palmer gave him 2, Brumo gave him 7, Iwobi gave him 2, oh, no Salah. Vardy gave him 9, Haaland gave him 24, and Watkins gave him 5. And that's how he got 88 points. Second was Ayodele Oladuni, got 86 points. Mark Lukwago got 85 points. Number 4 was Moses Chege Tim Kubwa, 84 points. And number 5 was Brian Rutere. Murima, you never walk alone, 84 points. Well done to all of you. The most transfers made this week goes back to a regular, Don Clinton, who made 8 transfers this week. Number 2 was Victor Nyabola, 6 transfers. Bonaji, number 3, with 5 transfers. Nkunku FC, number 4, with 5 transfers. And number 5 was Noel Ritchie, with 5 transfers as well. Highest change in team value, so Dennis Alubiri gained 0.6 to his team. Our highest global ranker riser is Murima, You Never Walk Alone. They jumped a whopping 583,000 global positions. If you've noticed, these numbers are becoming lower and lower. It means that maybe the gaps are just settling, if that makes any sense. Our highest league ranker climber this week was Team Kubwa, Moses Chege. Climbed 16 positions. Well done to you, sir. Our highest team value belongs to Suraj Baigane, 107.1. Well done. Vibhav Naik has seen him go 12 weeks in a row with the green arrows. Well done. Keep going. Madagani Kihoro has the most goal scorers in his team with 7 different goal scorers. Well done to you. And best transfer outcome belongs to Madagani Kihoro. He gained an impressive 16 points from the transfers he made. Look at you, sir. You're climbing. I'm seeing you're looking at the table and you're number 10. Listen to that episode. This guy knows what he's talking about. He used his wild card and he used it well. Inazuma 11, managed by El Bicho, got 16 as well. David Ouattara 15, George Ota 15, Gerald Juma 15. When it comes to not so good starts, most points on the bench, the Gunnans, it's a weird name, G-U-N, Gun, E-N, Gunnan, R-S, managed by Neville Jabali, left a whopping 30 points on their bench. 30, that's so painful. And that was led by Gakpo, who had 16, Bruno, 3, Pickford, 5, Kirkers, 6. And they lost 12 points too, so that's unfortunate. Lawyer Abdul Malik Alawadhi left 27 points on the bench. Vinny Makori left 26 points on the bench. Bruce Lee Abungana left 24 points on the bench. And at number 5, Eric Moranga left 23 points on the bench. When it comes to disappointing transfer outcomes, Don Clinton, who made the most transfers, had he just left his team, would have been 19 points better. So by making the transfers, they're 19 points worse. Arnold Midunga, big man bossy, 16 points worse off. Dennis Com, 15 points worse off. Malik United, 14 points worse off. And Phoenix, managed by Wilson Ding, 10 points worse off by the transfers made. Another person who's been mentioned for not so good things is Alexander Mutune. Dropped another 16 places this week. He's struggling. He's not going to finish better this year, which is his team name. Lowest team value belongs to none other than Malik United. 96.6. You'd think a team with 96.6 would look bad, but let me just give you his lineup. Raya in goal, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Pedro Porro, Vardiol, Gay, Mainu, Ahmad, Rogers, Haaland, Watkins, Havertz, Fabianski, Madison, Yarmolenko, Faish. Not a bad team, considering its low team value. The lowest points this week belongs to Duncan Anzigare, manager of Real Vincenza. 32 points. When you look at the team, it's just clear that this guy, it's a dead team. It doesn't really do anything anymore. In goal, it's Martinez, 2 points, Twanzebe, 0 points, Fofana, 0 points, Saliba, 9, Savinho, 0, KDB, who is his captain, 2 points, Kulusevski, 2 points, Garnacho, 3 points, Odegaard, 0, Haaland, 12, Havertz, 2. On his bench, nobody played. Forster, 0, Van de Ven, 0, Babu, 0, Ladapo, 0. Just a dead team. Second was Essex City, managed by John Fadili, who got 41 points. Boazogala, 42, Vinny Makori, 42, and number 5, Reagan Orina, 42. So we had 4 people getting 42 points. When it comes to streaks of red arrows, Team Kubwa, managed by Teddy Mwalo. I didn't realize we had 2 Team Kubwas in our league. He's not been having a good few weeks. This is the 8th red arrow week in a row. John Fadili, who got 41 points, has dropped 526,000 points, ranks globally. Worst change in team value, Peter Checkmate, managed by Hamoudi. It has dropped by 0.9. Bud King, managed by Vibhav Naik. For the 12th week in a row has seen a streak of green arrows. When it comes to captain choices, our most popular captain, as you can imagine, is Salah. 159 people chose him to be their captain. Number 2 is such a drop-off. It is Isak with 31. Well done, all of you clever people. Number 3 is Haaland with 19 people choosing him as captain. 8 people chose Palmer. Against City, that doesn't make sense, but they did. People chose Wood. 3 people. It's not too bad, but sorry. 2 people chose Cunha. Sorry. Some people chose Solanke. That doesn't make sense. He's injured. 2 people chose Havertz. Bad decision, or rather, when you watched how he missed, you wouldn't feel great. And you have Son chosen by 1, Pedro Porro chosen by 1, good gamble. Gordon chosen by 1, Haaland 1, KDB and Zigare, as you remember. Trent chosen by 1, Delap chosen by 1, Nicholas Jackson chosen by 1, Mbumo chosen by 1. Wow, somebody chose Kluivert. Well done to you, sir. And Watkins chosen by 1. Not as varied as the week before, but still varied. So when it comes to our league table, I consulted with our sponsors, and it turns out they had a preference of when the window for adding new players would close. And that was somewhere early on in like Gameweek 10. So because of that, Emmanuel Birek, who was our league leader last week, who joined in and was instantly leader, has been removed from the league and he won't be participating anymore, and others will be removed as well. So Dubois original is our leader, 1519 points. Number 2 is Peter Chakmet Hamoudi, 1504 points. Abdallah Kili, 1496. Yusufa Mokoko, 1493. Texas Tens, 1489. Oti Omondi, 1486. Alan Muchangi, 1482. Research Set Pieces, 1481. Drediax, 1476. And the Walker Dead at 1475. So, as you can see, between number 1 and number 10, it's just about 43 points. It's still tight up there, and anything could happen. So, if you're getting close to 1,480 points, you have a chance of just being number 1 in the next 2 to 3 weeks, if you're not too far from that total right now. Of course, that all depends on if you make the right decisions. As we move into the next game week, the most important thing to know is that it's a double game week. Everton and Liverpool are playing a double game week. Second thing to know is that they're going to be midweek fixtures. And as always, they can affect the availability and performance of players on the weekend. Also, something that may or may not affect it is that the transfer window will be closing by the time the game week starts. So there may be transfers made this week which may affect starting lineups. Like you saw Mamouche starting and Kusanov, which now means somebody like Rico Lewis has fallen down further in the pecking order. Now that that's out of the way, the game week starts on Saturday, and it'll be an early kickoff with Nottingham Forest taking on Brighton. Both teams had unexpected losses which puts their general form into question. Forest were absolutely hammered last time out by Bournemouth, whilst Brighton lost to Everton, which is a bit of a surprising result. Their head-to-head shows that it tends to be a competitive fixture, 2-2, 1-0, 3-2, 3-1, 0-0. That's 2 draws, 2 wins for Brighton and 1 win for Forest. They're kind of evenly matched, with Brighton having the slight advantage. Personally, I think a 0-0 or a draw would really suit both teams. I believe that just not losing would be good for both teams mentally. I believe whoever loses this fixture would be hurt more. Was a 5-0 something that will distract them from the rest of the season, or will they just let it just fade away? That's what I want to see from this fixture. I have 2 Forest defenders, and how they respond in this game will determine how many I have moving forward. Based on their results, I think just because Brighton lost with a smaller margin, I'm going to put them as slight favourites because they have less mental work to do. the best assets from Brighton are Minte, Mitoma, and Baleba. From Forest, it is still Wood, Elanga, Morgan Gibbs-White. Going forward, and then at the back, Sells your choice of defender, be it Murillo, Aina, Milenkovic, and then Hudson-Odoi. Scratch that, Hudson-Odoi is doubtful, so he may or may not play. Sangare is injured. For Brighton, Ferguson, Kadioglu, Igor, Milner, and Wifa are injured. In spite of their hammering, Forest have still kept the most clean sheets this season with 9. And they're ranked second away from home this season. They're home, so that doesn't matter. Brighton has scored 10 in their last 5 matches, and Mitoma has created the most chances for Brighton with 8, and Joao Pedro is the striker who is most on target. So he could be a person to recommend, but he is very patchy. Moving on, Bournemouth take on Liverpool, and this for me is the marquee game of the week. Bournemouth beat people who seem unbeatable. Liverpool are the best team in England. That is a great matchup. For Liverpool, of course, this is the first game of the double game week. Now, you have to decide whether you think they will keep a clean sheet against Bournemouth. The odds are low for that, but it is possible. In their recent fixtures, Liverpool have been absolutely dominant. They have won 3-0, 4-0, 2-1, 3-1, and lost 1-0. So they are the favoured team. That is still true. They are the best team in England, best team in Europe. They are the best team. No lies. But Bournemouth are unpredictable. We have seen it. They beat Forest 5-0. Liverpool couldn't beat them. They beat Newcastle 2-0 the other day. I just don't know. I still believe that Liverpool are favoured. But I don't think it'll be straightforward. Now, for the double game week, if you expect a clean sheet, this would be a great game to choose either Trent or Konate. And then moving forward, Gakpo and maybe Salah. Yeah, those are for me are the 3 best. Trent, Salah, Gakpo. Of course, Diaz, Jota, Nunes are always factors to consider, but those 3 for me feel more solid. On the other end, Ouattara, Kluivert, Semenyo. And then your choice of defender. Everton versus Leicester. Both teams are in the relegation battle. Both teams won on the weekend. They will be buoyed. Everton under Moyes, the manager bounce is real. 2 wins in a row. It could be 3. I wouldn't put it past them to beat Leicester, considering who they've beaten in the recent past. And I would say get your defender, whichever one you believe in, be it Mikolenko, Branthwaite, Pickford. Then going forward, it's just honestly Ndiaye. Calvert-Lewin got injured over the weekend, and we've seen Ndiaye takes penalties. So Ndiaye, Pickford, and your defender. But the problems are they're playing Liverpool the second game, but it's still Ndiaye. Defense might be now where it's shaky. Maybe if you expect Pickford to make many saves, that's fine. Now, for the Everton game against Leicester, Broja is unavailable. McNeil, Coleman, Chermiti, Eric Bonham, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin unavailable. For Leicester, Fatawu, Hermansen, Ndidi, and Pereira are out. Now, I've already recommended Everton players. For Leicester, I recommend that you select Vardy, Elkanous, and maybe Bonanote. Ipswich take on Southampton on what should be the relegation derby. For me, it's clear at this point that both teams are going down. Both teams drew with each other last time out. I wouldn't encourage you to enter these fixtures if you don't already have their players. Like, for example, if you already have your Bednareks and your Davises and your O'Sheas, just stay with them. If you don't have them, don't have them. It's hard to judge 2 teams that are doing badly, but I think Southampton are better than Ipswich right now, even though they're bottom of the table. I know it's weird to say, but having watched Southampton, I think they're more impressive over the last 5 games. The problem for me right now is that it doesn't seem like Juric knows what his best team is, and it's fair, he's not too new in the job. I mean, he's rather not too old in the job. And so he keeps rotating, which makes it hard to recommend players, especially moving forward. The other thing about it is that his team was better with Dibbling playing, and since he got injured against Manchester United, they've been having a harder time moving forward. Bazunu Stevens, Stewart, and Dibbling are injured. Ogbene, Chaplin, and Smotsic are out for Ipswich. For Ipswich, if you're choosing players, Hutchinson, Delap, maybe Greaves, or a random defender. This might be the only game you can get a clean sheet. Whilst for Southampton, it's the same. Just get maybe Archer, Armstrong, Fernandez, and maybe even your Bednarek or Howard Bellis. This is an inconsequential game. Both teams are relegated either way. If you have their players, put them. That's all. Newcastle take on Fulham. In their recent head-to-head, Newcastle have won 4 out of the 5 games they've played each other. However, in the very last game that they played each other, Fulham beat them 3-1. The goal scorers on that day were Jimenez, Emil Smith-Rowe, and Reece Nelson for Fulham, whilst Barnes scored for Newcastle. Now, Isak is a man on form right now. And of course, he is the first player I'd recommend, followed by Aaron Gordon and then Aaron Murphy. For Fulham, Jimenez, Smith-Rowe, and Robinson. Wilson, Barnes, and Lascelles are injured for Newcastle, whilst Tete and Nelson are injured for Fulham. Wolves take on Aston Villa, and should they be able to escape another red card? It should be competitive. I think they bottled the game against Arsenal. They had a chance to win, but they were just got in the way of themselves. Aston Villa drew with West Ham last time out, so both teams would be looking to correct this. Aston Villa are the better team and are the favourites in this encounter. They have beaten them twice, drawn twice, and lost once in their last 5 fixtures. Wolves have won once in their last 5 fixtures, whilst Aston Villa have drawn 2, won 2, lost 1. For Wolves, the same suspects are the same suspects to recommend. Strand Larsen, Cunha, Ait-Nouri. For Aston Villa, I would say it is Watkins, Ramsey, and Rodgers. If you're feeling like a defender, go for it as well. They've been sneaky in their clean sheets. And this one could have one, especially if Wolves are as careless as they were in the last game. Maybe not careless, but wasteful. Next day sees Tottenham take on Brentford. Brentford will be at home. Brentford won their first away game of the season. Well, maybe it's the second. But they were impressive and they won away from home, so they've overcome something. Now they take on Tottenham. There are always goals in this one. The last 5 fixtures go this way. 3-1 to Tottenham, 3-2 to Tottenham, 2-2 draw, 3-1 to Brentford, 2-2. 2? Both of them. Now, Tottenham are slightly favoured, but that's probably when they're full strength. They've been showing that when they're not at full strength, they are unpredictable. I think Brentford are favoured because they tend to be better at home, and I think that Spurs will be underdogs in this game. Bomo, Damsgaard, Wisa, and Shada, in whichever order, would be people to look into. On the other end, you have Son, Richarlison, Kulusevski, and Pedro Porro, who can never be forgotten. In the order you decide. Heki, Pinnock, Gomez, Rodriguez, De Silva are unavailable for Brentford, whilst Johnson, Romero, Udoji, Spence, Solanke, Vicario, Van de Ven, Werner, Odegaard are injured for Spurs. They're having a very difficult season. I wouldn't bank on a clean sheet for either side, as you've just had me read out the fixtures results. No clean sheets. Manchester United take on Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace lost last time out to Brentford. They had so many chances. If they continue to waste as many chances as they did, they will lose to Manchester United. It'll just be a reverse fixture of Southampton versus Man U. Now, Man United beat Fulham. They took their chances as well. Fulham didn't take theirs, and that was it. That was how that game was decided. And so this will be a game of who takes their chances. Ahmad had a disallowed goal, which infuriated many. It was the marginalist goals, mainly because we have it in our teams, not because we really care. Ahmad, Bruno Fernandes, Lisandro Martinez are my favorite Manchester United players right now. And for Crystal Palace, Eze, Mateta, and Munoz are my favorite Palace players right now. Evans, Shaw, and Mount are unavailable for Manchester United, whilst Wharton, Riyad, Doucouré, Ward, and Franca are unavailable for Crystal Palace. Their head-to-head has 1 draw, 2 wins for Palace, 2 wins for United, so it's very split. But in recent times, 0-0 and 4-0 to Crystal Palace were the most recent results. So Crystal Palace have the slight edge, but it's really about if they take their chances. If they're as wasteful as they were in their last match, they have no chance of winning. The marquee game of the fixture of the game week, we'll see Arsenal take on Manchester City. Of late, this has become a very tight encounter. 2-2, 0-0, 1-0, 1-1, and 4-1. Not so tight. But Manchester City have lost the dominance that they had over this fixture. And I think Arteta is very close to figuring out how to beat Pep. He hasn't really done it, but he's close in his evolution of trying to beat City. It's really unfortunate that they don't have the form that they've had over the last 2 seasons. Otherwise, they would be giving Liverpool a good run for their money. I'm sure Haaland will keep his mouth shut at the end of this fixture, whichever way it goes. And maybe with that, he will have stayed humble. This is the kind of game in which I would recommend Arsenal defenders, particularly Gabriel. They just seem to score in this fixture by corners. I don't know if it's because Man City are just dwarfs or Arsenal just know how to score against them. I don't know. But I am confident in a Gabriel recommendation. Outside that, maybe Trossard and Gabriel Martinelli. Havertz, I don't know. Havertz would be a great recommendation if he actually just does his job. But he just is so patchy. On the other end, Foden, Haaland are the first 2 fixtures. Names on your fixture list, and maybe Vardiol. There will be goals in this game, so it's not for the clean sheet, but you're getting the defenders because of their attacking potential. Skelly, of course, is suspended. Ben White is out. Saka out. Jesus out. Tomiyasu out. On the other end, Doku, Ake are doubtful, whilst Bob, Rodri, and Diaz are out. Man City have scored 21 goals in their last 5 matches, so that's an average of like 4 a game. So they are in really good goal scoring form. Based on form alone, I believe Manchester City will win. But based on the fixture alone, I think it will be settled by a goal. 2-1, 3-2, something like that. 1-0. The last game of the season is the Potter Derby. Graham Potter takes on Chelsea. Chelsea versus West Ham. This is a game that is tough to predict, although I think Chelsea are the much better team right now. Potter has entered into a stretch of difficult fixtures, and this is just one of them. Their recent head-to-head fixtures favor Chelsea 3-0, 5-0, 2-1, and then they lost 3-1 to West Ham and they've drawn 1. So they've won 3, drawn 1, lost 1. If you watch the Man City game, Sanchez is a joke of a goalkeeper. He plays that rush goalie thing too seriously. He's always out of position, and he does not help Chelsea's cause in keeping a clean sheet. I hope that they give the other 6 keepers they have a chance. Madueke, Palmer, Nicholas Jackson are unfortunately Chelsea's best options. For West Ham, it is Paqueta, Kudus, Souček. Wan-Bissaka and Emerson are always in with a potential for a goal or an assist. So if you're leaning that way, that's fine. Looking at the fixtures, in the Forest versus Brighton game, Wood is a good candidate for captain. In the Bournemouth versus Liverpool game, Kluivert, Ouattara are captain choices. And of course, Salah and Gakpo are captain choices. Now, for this game week, I think it would be best to choose a Liverpool player as your captain as they play twice. So be it Diaz, Jota, whoever you choose, I think if you believe they'll play twice, that should be your captain choice. I am personally going for Salah or Gakpo. I haven't decided yet, but it's one of them. So in the Everton game, maybe you get Ndiaye Idris or Pickford. Ipswich versus Southampton. I can see Delap having a good game. In the Newcastle game, Isak is a possible captain. Maybe the strongest from Newcastle. In Fulham, maybe Jimenez or Iwobi. For Wolves, Cunha. For Aston Villa, I can see Watkins being good. Brentford versus Spurs, Bumo or Wisa. Or maybe even if you're a gambler, Pedro Porro, Son, Maddison. Man United, Fernandes or Ahmad. That's it. Crystal Palace, Mateta or Eze. Arsenal versus Man City, Haaland or Foden. On the Arsenal end, Martinelli or Trossard or Gabriel. Chelsea versus West Ham, Palmer or Nicholas Jackson. And finally, Everton versus Liverpool. Just if you've chosen a captain from one of these teams, just stay with that. If you've chosen Ndiaye, why not? If you've chosen Salah, if you've chosen Gakpo, fine. Honestly, the real trick to this week is capitalizing on the double game week however you can. So do your best to take advantage of it by having a minimum of 3 or 4 players playing twice. Moving on to the FPL FDR, Arsenal take on City, then Leicester, West Ham, Forest, Man United. After City, the fixtures become winnable. Aston Villa have Wolves, Ipswich, Chelsea, Crystal Palace, Brentford. This is the right time to get into Villa. Absolute right time. Bournemouth take on Liverpool, then they have Southampton, Wolves, Brighton, Spurs. And after this Liverpool game, or even this, including this game, it's a great time to have Bournemouth players. Brentford take on Tottenham, West Ham, Leicester, Everton, and Villa. All winnable games. Brighton have Forest, Chelsea, Southampton, Bournemouth, Fulham. After Chelsea, yes, Chelsea have West Ham, Brighton, Aston Villa, Southampton, Leicester. In theory, winnable fixtures, but Chelsea are not in great form. But this is the kind of fixtures that can help fix their form. Crystal Palace have Man United, Everton, Fulham, Aston Villa, Ipswich. Absolutely all winnable games. After the Man United, let's see. They can actually, the correct ranking of their fixtures are neutral. They could win or they could lose. I could see either of those things happening very easily. They're playing their peers. Everton start with a double game week with Leicester, Liverpool. Then they have Crystal Palace, Man United, Brentford, and Wolves. That's a good run of fixtures. Fulham have Newcastle, Forest, Crystal Palace, Wolves, and Brighton. I would say these are neutral fixtures as well. They could win all of them, but they could also be surprised here and there. Ipswich have just gotten out of their really difficult fixtures. Now they have Southampton, Aston Villa, Tottenham, Man United, and Crystal Palace. There's no easy fixture for them, so I could see them, apart from Southampton, losing all of them. Leicester have Everton, Arsenal, Brentford, West Ham, and Chelsea. It's a mixed bag. I feel like they could get 6 points out of a possible 15. Liverpool have Bournemouth, Everton, Wolves, Man City, Newcastle, Southampton. So out of the next 6 fixtures, 4 of them are very winnable. Man City have Arsenal, Newcastle, Liverpool, Tottenham, Nottingham Forest. These are difficult teams. That's all I'll say. I believe they're into form, so they should make these games much more competitive. But let's see. Man United have Crystal Palace, Tottenham, Everton, Ipswich, and Arsenal. This is a reasonable spell. They've had a bit of a difficult spell, or rather they have had difficult form, and this could be a set of fixtures that could help them recover. Could. Not will. Could. Newcastle have Fulham, Man City, Forest, Liverpool, West Ham. After Fulham, the games become tricky. So watch them and decide whether to ease up on their players, especially if you're doubling or tripling up on them. Forest have Brighton, Fulham, Newcastle, Arsenal, Man City. After the recent hammering, I am skeptical now of their fixtures, but let's see how they recover against Brighton. But these are definitely difficult fixtures. They're entering a very difficult patch. Southampton have Ipswich, Bournemouth, Brighton, Chelsea, Liverpool. There are no easy fixtures for Southampton, but the next 3 Well, Ipswich is the only easy-ish fixture. The rest they should lose. Spurs have Brentford, Man United, Ipswich, City, and Bournemouth. Like I've been saying for the past few weeks, they can beat anybody, they can be beaten by anybody. Just, I don't even know how to recommend their players, but whatever you feel like, you're probably correct. West Ham take on Chelsea, Brentford, Arsenal, Leicester, Newcastle in the next 5. Chelsea and Arsenal will be their toughest fixtures, while the rest are winnable. If they can manage to get a result against Chelsea, it might set them up to do well in the rest. Wolves have Aston Villa, Liverpool, Bournemouth, Fulham, Everton. So after Liverpool, they're going to enter now the real fight for their season. Their tough fixtures are ending. And now they're going to be at least playing their peers. So after Liverpool, that might be worth it. Remember that they are midweek fixtures. Remember that the assistant manager chip is available. And remember to make your teams. I hope you've had a good week, and I hope the rest of your week goes well. See you on the pitch. Bye.